When I was 13 or 14, my life was split between my parents, 1 week with my mom, 1 week with my dad. Shortly after my parents divorced, my dad moved in with his new girlfriend. She claimed they hadn't been together before the divorce, but let's be real, it was obvious. Along with her came her 2 kids, both of whom were nightmares. The youngest, an 8-year-old girl, was the worst. Even at that age, she was manipulative, entitled, and cruel. She had all the makings of a classic mean girl, spoiled rotten by her mother, overly confident because of her looks, and backed by achievements in academics and sports. But it wasn't her success that made her unbearable, it was the way she rubbed it in everyone's face and tore others down. My little brother and I, already dealing with the fallout of the divorce, were her favorite targets. One night, when my dad and his girlfriend left me to babysit all the kids, unpaid, of course, the youngest stepkid took things too far. Knowing the adults were on their way home, she trashed her own room, gave herself a bruise by hitting her arm against the bedpost, and hid her saved-up money in my little brother's room. When the parents arrived, she put on a dramatic performance, complete with crocodile tears, accusing my brother of stealing her money and hitting her. My dad and his girlfriend immediately believed her, without a second thought. They stormed into my brother's room, found the money she had planted, and grounded him harshly. He wasn't even given a chance to explain himself. Later that night, as I tried to comfort my brother, the little brat crept into the room with a smug grin. She confessed to framing him and said something I'll never forget. "Soon your dad is gonna send you to live with your stupid, slutty mom. I can't wait to see you and that retarded little loser out of my house." Hearing those words, I was furious beyond anything I'd ever felt before. My little brother, barely more than a kid himself, was lying there in tears, convinced his father didn't love him. Meanwhile, this spoiled brat was gloating about how she'd gotten away with it. I tried to hold it together for my brother's sake, but deep down, something snapped. The next day, after school, I was stuck cleaning up the breakfast dishes because, as usual, the stepkids and their mom never lifted a finger to help. While I was scrubbing away, the youngest stepkid sauntered into the kitchen with her trademark smugness. "You're such a lousy maid," she sneered. "Almost as useless as your retard brother." The word hit me like a slap. My mind flashed back to the night before, to my brother crying himself to sleep. Then she added, with a smirk, "It's only a matter of time before your dad sends him to a retard asylum. Maybe they'll take you too." That was it. I couldn't take it anymore. Before I even realized what I was doing, I grabbed her by the collar of her shirt and slammed her against the wall. My rage boiled over as I grabbed a knife from the counter and held it to her throat. "Listen to me, you little bitch," I hissed, my voice low and trembling with anger. "I'm done with your shit. You want to pick on someone? Fine. Come after me. But if you ever insult, hurt, or frame my little brother again, I swear I will kill you. And don't think I won't. My life is already hell, so jail doesn't scare me. My brother is the one good thing I have left, and I will do whatever it takes to protect him." "Got it." Her eyes were wide with terror, and for once, she was completely silent. I pressed the knife just hard enough against her skin to make sure she knew I wasn't bluffing. Then I let her go. She ran out of the kitchen without a word. I stood there shaking, the knife still in my hand, trying to process what I'd just done. I wasn't proud of it, but I didn't regret it either. My brother didn't deserve the way she treated him, and if no one else was going to protect him, I would. From that day on, everything changed. From that moment on, the little brat was a different person around me, and more importantly, around my brother. She didn't speak to me unless she absolutely had to, and whenever we crossed paths, she avoided eye contact like her life depended on it. The smug grin she always wore? Gone. But the real victory was how she treated my brother. No more insults, no more setups, no more framing him for things he didn't do. It was as though she had finally realized that her actions had consequences. She never told her mom or my dad about what happened in the kitchen. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was the sheer humiliation of being overpowered by the maid she loved to mock, but she stayed silent. Every so often, while I was washing dishes or cooking, I'd catch her watching me out of the corner of her eye. I'd casually pick up a knife, not to do anything, but just to hold it while smiling at her. She'd quickly look away, her face pale, and leave the room. Even though my dad and stepmom didn't notice a thing, my little brother did. A few weeks later, he came up to me and said, "She's not mean to me anymore. Did you do some things?" I shrugged and gave him a reassuring smile.
Don't worry about it.
She won't bother you again. Years later, when we were both older, I told him the truth about what had happened. His reaction floored me. He hugged me tightly and said, "I always knew you did something.
You've always protected me."
I don't need a shitty dad when I got a superhero for a big sister. I cried that night, overwhelmed by his words and the bond we'd always shared. Years later, I left my dad's house for good. I couldn't stand being treated like a servant anymore, and living under the same roof as my stepmom and her kids was unbearable. I moved in with my mom, who taught me to stand up for myself in a healthier way and gave me the support I needed to rebuild my confidence. Looking back, I don't regret what I did. I hate confrontation, and violence isn't in my nature, but the way that little brat treated my brother triggered something primal in me. My brother deserved better than the cruelty he endured, and if scaring her into behaving was the only way to stop it, then so be it. Over time, I heard less and less about my dad's new family. I know the stepkids went on to be successful in their own ways, and maybe the youngest eventually grew out of her awful personality. I don't really care either way. The important thing is that my brother and I moved on. Even now, when I think back to those dark days, my brother's words still make me tear up. "You've always protected me. I don't need a shitty dad when I've got a superhero for a big sister."
And he's right.
No matter what we went through, we had each other. If you or someone you care about is stuck in a toxic family situation, remember that you don't have to endure it forever. Seek out support from people who truly care for you, and stand up for the ones you love when they need it most. For more personal stories and life lessons, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Let's share, learn, and grow together.